These are the words of my colleague, Lisa Doge. Why a flaming chalice, the question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessings overflowing, a cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of wine for celebration and dedication, the flame of truth, the fire of purification, oil for anointing, healing, out of chaos, fear, and horror. Thus was the symbol crafted generations ago. So may it be with us, a light to warm our souls and once again guide us home. Welcome, beloved. My name is Aaron Payson. I am honored to be the minister of this congregation, or one of a number of ministers of this congregation, and I welcome you here this morning to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work and learn and live and worship on the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people, who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We welcome you to this morning's worship service. We're glad that you've joined us here this morning, here in person, and for those of us joining us online, a special welcome to you. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few moments to gather in community so that we might care for each other and take a moment to reflect on our own well-being and discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world. As an act of solidarity with our children and those among us who have not yet been able to be vaccinated, we invite all of you to wear your face masks. Masks should be placed over the nose and mouth and gently formed to the contour of the nose and chin. If you do not have a face mask, please speak to an usher who can provide one for you. Large print hymnals and orders of service are located in the foyer, as well as hearing devices and pew cushions for those who would find any of these helpful. Please see one of the ushers or greeters to locate any of these items. For those of you joining us online for safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you are able, please list your device, your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Zoom and Facebook, as well as being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel and our website worship archive. Closed captioning is available for those on Facebook, I believe. We extend a very special welcome to newcomers this morning and invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. You're welcome to drop that card in the offering plate or leave it with one of the boxes here in the sanctuary, fellowship hall, or sanctuary for your door. In a moment, we will be passing around pew sheets. We invite all of you to sign in on the sheet. Please know that the information collected is for church purposes only. Due to the pandemic, we're foregoing the collection of children's change for change at this time. However, there is a basket next to the Joys and Sorrows candle bowl for those who would like to contribute change to assist with the church emergency fund this morning. Following the service this morning, you're invited to join us for a time of fellowship under the tent out front. Following the service or online, you may stay online for virtual fellowship. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. Our opening words this morning are those of my colleague Erica Hewitt. Holy One, you knit me together in my mother's womb. This is the voice of Psalm 139. I was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. She writes, let us remember and celebrate this morning that each of our bodies was woven together in the depths of mystery. Cells multiplying, tissue taking form, organs taking up their function, and all under the silky cover of skin. Let us gather in reverence for the gift of these bodies, whatever their ages, their shapes, their abilities, and may we know them to be channels of the world coming alive through us. These bodies, these blessings, bring the world to life through seeing and tasting and hearing and scent and touch. May we bring our intricately woven bodies a sense of sacred caretaking. In doing so, let us also be grateful for the embrace of the holy, the presence that creates and sustains life, the mystery that knit together each of our bodies, and the force of love that celebrates our desires. Would you please join together and stand in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, number 88, found in your gray hymnals, Come, Soul of All Things. Come, soul of all things made, to feel amid the city's jar, that there abides a peace of thine I did not make and cannot mar. Please be seated. Do we have anyone from the Religious Exploration Program with us this morning that would like to share with us what's happening? I will tell you that we are seeing a variety of things in our Religious Exploration Program. This day, our children are again gathered outside for their program. In addition to that, our Coming of Age program will join members of this congregation of all ages for our annual participation in the Holden Crop Walk, which happens this afternoon at 1 p.m. at the beginning of the West Boylston end of the West Boylston Holden Rail Trail. So those of you who are interested in joining members of our RE program as well as this congregation in that annual venture, you're welcome to join us there. Also, you will see things beginning to form near the entrance of the church. It is not a mystery to those who have been involved in the making, but it continues to be a mystery for those who have not yet been initiated into the secrets of this congregation. Those secrets will be revealed to you on October 31st. And that's all I'm going to say. So you're going to wait, and between now and then, I look forward to hearing all kinds of comments from you about what possibly could be being built at our entrance. Your guess is as good as mine, although I happen to know what it's going to be. So we'll go from there. And we celebrate this work that's happening because of the creativity of our Religious Exploration Program and their continuing commitment to the principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism in general, and this congregation in particular. What you are seeing being built outside is just one simple but profound reflection of our commitment to those principles, and we're thankful for the ongoing work of our Religious Exploration Program. The reading this morning is from another colleague, Lisa Doge. Oh, no, Liesel Mueller, I'm sorry, entitled Monet Refuses the Operation. And it goes like this. Doctor, you say that there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris, and what I see is an aberration caused by old age and affliction. I tell you that it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur the finely banish of the edges you regret that I don't see, to learn that the line I call the horizon does not exist, and sky and water so long apart are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun. And now you want to restore my youthful errors, fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, mysterious separate from the bridge it covers. What can I say? What can I say to convince you the House of Parliament dissolves night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames? I will not return to a universe of objects that do not know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. The world is flux, and light becomes what it touches, becomes water, lilies on water. Above and below water becomes lilac and mauve and yellow and white and cerulean lamps, small fists passing sunlight so quickly to one another that it would take long streaming hair inside my brush to catch it. To paint the speed of light. Our weighted shapes, these verticals burn to mix with air and change our bones, skin, clothes to gases. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world. Blue vapor without end. We come to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to share that which is symbolic of our own life's journey, our own efforts, our own values, the work of our hands and our minds and our bodies, that which is symbolic of what we value and can be put into service to that which we value in common. And so on those days when we worship together, we take up an offering, that which is capable of continuing the mission and ministries of this congregation. And that in and of itself is good news. And there's so much more here. 54 families yesterday will survive another month and not face the kind of food insecurity that so often plagues the neighbors that surround us because of the work of this congregation. Children gather in space outside, away from screens, and screaming their hellos to each other in order to create a more perfect world based on friendship. That is good news. This congregation continuing to plan for what it might mean to welcome Afghan refugees, or to serve a community dinner to those asylees who have escaped from their places of origin where their sexual orientation is considered an aberration and illegal, who will know what it means to be in true community because of people who will reach out and feed them not just food, but friendship, and accompany them into more just places. That is good news. Those who continue to mentor our youngest in our coming of age program, and our youth group that comes together in droves on Sunday evening. Why? Because they can. This is all good news, and it is because of you that this good news is made possible. So I invite you to take up a simple offering for not so simple reasons, and if for nothing else, because that too is good news. At this time, our morning offering will be received.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Now when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of more music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Oh, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be, yeah, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be.
Would you please turn in your gray hymnals to number 352? Please remain seated as we join together in our call to meditation and prayer this morning in joys and sorrows. Three 52. Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. See the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let the silence hold the flower, watch the flower carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Can you hum that? I can think of no greater introduction to an opportunity for us to share than for a call to silence, that which precedes thought and speech, but that into which thought and speech enter. And so we enter this time, when we're given pause to consider that which is deepest in our hearts, most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired, or in the prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this day to come forward to speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are, so that those who are online and those using our auditory enhancement devices might also participate in this important ritual. And then to light a candle, if you so desire. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
Hi, my name is Paul, and I have a sorrow. Well, last week I was sharing that my brother was killed on October 16th. I forgot to mention that my sister-in-law passed away on the same day, a couple of years ago. And And I also have a joy to share with you. This is the first, you know, you know, in a long time where I'm able to just sit back and enjoy the service. And all of you are concerned, when you get up here, speak boldly.
Good morning, I'm Kim. I come this morning to ask you for prayers for my family. I have several family members who are going through treatments in hospitals and trying to find some answers to what's wrong. So I just ask for prayers for them.
Good morning. I'm Matt Bajun. I have a joy today. My boys started a new school this fall, Touchstone Community School in Grafton, and it is wonderful. It's all the things we hoped it would be. And I'm excited that this week, the 7th graders are going on a trip to the White Mountains for 3 days. And I'm thrilled that I get to chaperone on this trip. So looking very much forward to it.
Hi, I'm Rachel Wagner. My mom, Lynn Kristoff, is at home recovering from her second major fall this year. She was in the hospital and had surgery to repair some of her broken bones, and looking for thoughts and prayers to kind of give her some healing and just some positive vibes, but also we're trying to figure out how to keep her independent yet safe. Thank you.
Deb Van Battenberg. I have two joys. One is that my friend Ruth Carl, who was a Worcester woman forever and ever and took off for Texas 18 years ago, is here visiting, looking for a place to live, wanting to come back. And she's sitting with Barry, who she's volunteered with, and we were members at United Congregational together for years. We raised our adopted bad little boys together, and it's a joy to have you back. My other one, I have Dynamy interns. They are kids on a gap year program. They're usually wealthy. They usually have some issues, but we always take them. So I have two kids, and I'm in charge of the community garden in our neighborhood while Carl is gone. So it needed mowed. So I said to my friend Sandy, I got two guys, they can mow. They looked at the lawnmower and said, what do you do? I said, what do you mean, what do you do? One kid said, I grew up in Brooklyn, I had a sidewalk. The other kid says, I live in LA, we have a gardener. So anyhow, this week we taught two kids how to mow a lawn. So.
Good morning. I'm Karen Stevenson. Deb, we just moved to a large lawn, and it's the first time my son has mowed a lawn. It took him 6 hours and a lot of, I'm sure, prayer under his breath. So it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Diane Mann has so graciously pulled together services after church to just bring awareness. So this afternoon I'm doing a sound bath in the lounge, and Erin had everybody humming. Humming is exceptionally good for you. It raises all sorts of good vibes, but it also lowers your cortisol, and lowers your anxiety. So hum and come.
Hi, I'm Tom Pierce. I just wanted to stop and remember Rita. She died a year ago yesterday, and we're doing good. Both kids and my brother called yesterday and had a nice talk. But in the back of your mind, I didn't even have to look at the calendar. The weather tells me that this was the time of year she passed. So anyway, thanks for your support.
Hi, my name is Denise, and one of the joys of my life is to work with the LGBT Asylum Task Force. So those of you who don't know, we're a group that supports people who've had to leave their countries because of their sexual orientation. It's still illegal to be LGBT in over 80 countries in the world. So one of the traditions that we have is once a month we get together for a community dinner, and all of the asylum seekers come, and many members of our community who support us come, and we have a great dinner and share stories and have a wonderful time. And one of the things that we've done is that different community groups support us by coming and cooking the dinner and then hanging out and talking with the asylum seekers. So we have an opportunity, we've done it before. Downtown does it all the time. Worcester Friends do it all the time. But we have another opportunity to do it this November 8th. So it would be a group getting together, cooking dinner, and then going over to the church, which is the Hadlin Park Church in Worcester, and having dinner with the asylum seekers. So if you're interested in joining us, please let me know as soon as possible so I can book the date for us. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Heffernan, and I haven't been in a while, and it's really nice to see all of you. And as I was sitting back there thinking about sort of how hard this year has been, I reflected on a conversation I had recently with my mom. And she doesn't live around here, lives on the Cape, but my mom's had a hard life. She struggled with alcoholism, lost my dad when I was a baby with 4 young kids, lost my sister in 9/11. Lots of things, but she is absolutely right now living her best life, and it brings me so much joy. She and my stepdad had an Airstream. Last I talked to her, she was in Minnesota. She's been gone for months and is like, just meets people and is just really in this great space. And as I think about moments in this last year where things have seemed so hard and so difficult, sort of what she's overcome and how she's able to find happiness each and every day. She was up in Canada about a year ago. She promises me she'll be back for Thanksgiving, but she was up in Canada about a year ago and ended up meeting the mayor of a little town and got like a key to the town. I'm like, do we even do that? That's a real thing? But she, you know, it's resilience, I guess, is what it made me think of. And that brings me an awful lot of joy. Even if she's mostly out of cell service range and I can barely find her, but it makes me happy.
Hi, I'm Barry Brigham. Next Saturday, I'm having there's a fundraiser for the program that I coordinate over at the YMCA, which is the Livestrong program for cancer survivors, people that are just diagnosed or are going through treatment or have been in remission for however many years, 20 years or whatever. Directly after that, after the fundraiser at 1 p.m., we're just having a memorial service, and actually Aaron's going to help us with that, for anybody that you know that has experienced cancer, just to honor people. So we have a number of people coming, and if anybody is interested in, anybody from anywhere is interested in coming and just honoring some people that may have passed or that are, if you or someone you know is currently in the throes of cancer, it would be great to have you. And it will be at the Y. We have a small garden next to the lake, next to Indian Lake right down here. Thanks so much.
And finally, I want to say that also next Saturday afternoon, I think it's 3 p.m., we will be honoring the life of Laura Maruzzi, who died a few months ago, and her family is coming back. And so it'll be both in the sanctuary and online. For those of you who remember Laura, you're welcome to attend either way. Look for information coming out in this week's newsletter for ways to connect to that. And who do we have? Do we have anyone online this morning?
Yeah, from Beth Posner, Waldron. Thank you to all who wrote and offered to write postcards for Reclaim Our Vote to Black voters in Virginia. We sent out 250 postcards to Prince William County for their statewide election. If you missed out, no worries. Next fall, there will be more to get out the vote for the midterm elections. If you want to help get out the vote for the Worcester municipal elections, please contact me at gotv@uucworcester.org. And from Marapot Large, I'm sorry that friends who were very careful about COVID a year ago have lost the energy to stay vigilant. I don't blame them that they caught COVID, but it really worries me that they didn't notify everyone they'd been in contact with when they tested positive.
You can just leave it, just keep it back there. That's fine. Turn it off. So humming. Shall we do Spirit of Life humming? Humming requires that you close your lips and open your mouth. It's also COVID safe with a mask. Spirit of Life, we are so grateful for this day. An opportunity to come together and to witness to each other the healing beyond pain, the celebration beyond sadness, the opportunity to continue to strive for wholeness in the coming of beloved community. Mindful this day of those spirits that have gone before us, most especially Rita and Anisha. We come this day in order to represent something far greater than our individual lives. And we help us to continue to be mindful of the gift, of the opportunity, of the challenge, and the courage. Amen. There has to be at least one microphone thing, right? That's just the way it goes. But we are so grateful that the microphone up here worked so well this morning, and we will remember check the battery in this one. So this goes out to Beth Posner-Waldron, who's with us online this morning, and Ruth Silver, and so many others who wrote postcards. Paul Woodruff writes about a conversation he once had with a woman named Janice. Janice has never voted, and she tells me vehemently that she never will. Tweedledee, Tweedledum, she says, speaking of the candidates, they're like two peas in a pod. What difference does it make? She is in middle age, and I think she ought to know better. She's been engaged for many years in the debate about abortion and choice, and the next election is for president, the winner who will appoint people to the federal bench, and those judges will make decisions about abortion, decisions that will affect her life. But aren't you passionate about the abortion issue, I ask? Of course, the election will make a difference. She looks at me with pity in her eyes, and she she reserves only for foolish children and philosophy professors. My vote, she says, my vote makes a difference. She's convinced that the outcome will be the same whether she votes or not, and the polls have already announced the winner. And anyway, she goes on, even if the other guy wins, special interests won't let him do anything different. Well, I lost the argument. And she kept her record unblemished. No votes, 40 years living as an adult in a democracy, and she has never voted. She is not alone either. What could I say to change her mind? Not much. Janice is right about her vote. It won't make a difference. The odds that one vote could turn an election, even a very close one, such as occurred in November 2000, are so small they vanish for all practical purposes. She has made her decision unconsciously on the basis of what philosophers call rational choice theory. There is no way, none, ever, to show that she would be making the best choice for herself and acting in her own best interest by going to the polls and casting her ballot. She has nothing to gain from this, and at least an hour of her valuable time to lose. Voting is irrational. If everyone made that calculation, no one would vote. I tried out that line on her, and she gave me the same pitying look. Ask me something real, she says. Don't waste my time with if. She's right again. What happens in a scenario if a wild if clause will never really happen, never cost her a penny or cause her to lose a minute's sleep? So, says Woodruff, why should Janice vote? I tell her to see this as a matter of pure ethics. Since my appeals to Janice's personal advantage and even her political interests have failed, ethics, she snorts. Where does it say thou shalt vote? You know me, I don't lie or cheat or steal. I have given to charity and I volunteer at the hospital. Are you telling me I'm a bad person because I do not vote? I am foiled again, says Woodruff. As we generally understand ethics these days, Janice has got it covered. She lives a good life without voting. In the end, I have no argument for Janice. Voting in a democracy is a ceremony. And the peoples who turn out in large numbers to vote, unlike Americans, have a strong feeling for the value of ceremony. That feeling comes from reverence. But there is no argument for a feeling or for any other virtue as the source of feelings. You must grow up with a virtue in order to appreciate it. Janice has grown up with very little ceremony in her life and no appreciation for reverence. I can see that she has a vacuum in her mind where some people have a fountain of strong feelings. But she can't see that now, and no philosophical argument will change her into a sort of person who would see it. Then says the philosopher, voting is a ceremony. It is an expression of reverence, not for our government or our laws, not for anything human-made, but for the very idea that ordinary people are more important than the juggernauts that seem to rule them. Ordinary people are more important than the juggernauts that seem to rule them. If we do not understand why we should vote in this country, that is because we have forgotten the meaning of ceremony. And the meaning of ceremony is reverence. The meaning of ceremony is reverence. This simple claim struck me as I first read it sitting in my yard, the same yard that I described a few weeks ago in a nugget on the subject of this morning's reflection. In fact, I was in the midst of the morning ceremony that I had established this summer. After making coffee, which is a pre-verbal ceremony in my house, you know who you are, I moved to the yard, sans dog this time, and drank in the sunlight, and drank in the birdsong and the sound of the stream and the smell of the garden as I consumed my pre-verbal caffeine. I had not ventured out much during the early part of the pandemic. I think unconsciously I reacted to the presence of the deadly pathogen as though the world itself was infected. And there were times when all I wanted to do was hide. Anyone else here have that sense about them? And to be honest, what drove me into my yard more than our dog does was the frustration growing in me about humanity. I had observed once too often humankind's inhumanity on my computer screen and my television set. And I needed the sun to remind me that there was more to life than the destructive tendencies that had consumed my spirit in that moment. I think this experience is the beginning of reverence. Being reminded that life itself is bigger than any particular experience of life. I needed to be reminded of my smallness in relationship to the immensity of the nature of the universe. I also needed to be reminded that, like the plant and the animal life around me, I too could be resilient, despite the forces that might otherwise consume me, which is why I was drawn this month to the words of Thomas Starr King as he reflected on the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was writing to a friend. He said, "Emerson gave us last Monday evening the most brilliant lecture I have ever listened to from any mortal." You know, those of us that do public speaking, we wait for this kind of reaction. It was on the identity of the laws of the mind with the laws of nature. He proved conclusively that man is only a higher kind of corn, that he is a squirrel gone up into the first class, that he is a liberated oyster fully educated. I love that. I aspire to be a liberated oyster fully educated. And he is a spiritualized pumpkin, a thinking squash, a graduated sunflower, and an inspired turnip. Such imagery, such wit, such quaint things said in a tone solemn and sublime. I have the most profound respect henceforth for every melon vine as my ancestor, says Starr King. I look upon every turtle as kin. Like the philosopher whose words we heard at the beginning of this reflection, I too believe that reverence begins with a sense of humility, a recognition that I am not and humankind is not the be-all and end-all of things. It's an ethic of constraint, both emotionally and intellectually. I also think that reverence begins with empathy, the capacity to relate deeply to things. That lecture that Emerson gave was a lecture that he'd given the previous summer in London, a series of lectures. It was the second in that series. You know why I know that? I spent 3 hours searching for that lecture, and I found it. You know, the quote didn't say anything. I don't know about you, but there are certain things in my life when the information is missing, it gnaws on me. I have to go find it. It is the peculiar nature of one who cannot sit with a query like that and not go hunt it down. So now you know a little more about me than I think I probably should have expressed. But that's what happens. And I see a couple of you nodding. You know who you are. And so this lecture that was given by Ethic that touched Starr King includes the following, and this was in the article that I published earlier this month. I love how he begins this, as we cannot go into a zoological museum without feeling our family ties. And every rhomb and vessel and spinnacle claiming old acquaintance, so neither can a tender soul stand under a starry heaven and explore the solar or stellar arrangements without the wish to mix with them by knowledge. That's a very haughty way of saying, Lord, I love looking up at the sky. And when I go into places where I can be in the company of other beings, I am in the company of family. And so is reverence. Through empathy becomes a deep desire to relate at the most intimate level. I think about this, what happened to Martin Buber, the famous Orthodox Jewish theologian who crafted the theology that was based on this connection. Buber talks about having an experience with a horse as a child as the basis of his theology. The notion that one can not just groom a horse, but in the same moment have the kind of mystical experience where they feel like they're the horse being groomed, where the separateness melds into a common experience. He writes about this in Between Man and Man. So when I stroked the mighty mane, something marvelously smooth-combed and at other times just astonishingly wild, and I felt the life beneath my hand, and it was as though the element of vitality itself bordered on my skin. Something that was not I, was certainly not akin to me, palpably the other, not just another, really the other itself, and yet it, like me, approached, confided itself to me, placed itself elementally in the relation of thou and thou with me. Have you ever experienced that kind of unitary oneness, where an experience with a person or a place or a thing dissolves not into someone having an experience, but just the experience itself, where you and the experience, you and the environment, you and the other kind of dissolve in that moment? Sam Keen reflects on this similar sentiment in his book, Hymns to an Unknown God. Whippoorwills and barn owls sang me to sleep, writes the freelance philosopher. And many times I woke in the darkness and had to feel for the fur on my face to find out if I was a boy dreaming I was a bear, or a bear dreaming I was a boy. Before we learn to keep quiet about taboo subjects and to forget our immense knowledge, we were all delightfully and painfully omniscient and clairvoyant. We moved to the rhythms of those around us. Our bodies danced our fathers' and mothers' joys and mourned their sadness. Compassion was unavoidable. I remember how I cried when my father's eye was badly scratched and he lay for 3 days in a dark room, writes Keen. When primitive myths tell us that we once spoke and understood the languages of birds and animals and reptiles and insects, they remind us that childhood is a time of at-one-ment, which we theologically turn into atonement. At-one-ment of communion of sentient beings when all creatures shared a single body. This mystical sense of at-one-ment, or as it is also known in some scientific circles, unitary oneness, and also in meditative circles as unitary oneness, is to lose oneself and commune with all that is, Neuroscientists tell us that in order for this to happen, certain parts of the brain literally have to shut down. Those parts related to the ways in which we compartmentalize our experiences and consequently become conscious of our bodies and other things as separate entities. This neurological ability is important for our survival. We need to know our boundaries in a world where so much can threaten our existence, and yet the great religions have been teaching boundlessness as an important part of our consciousness as well. Such experiences give us insight into our place in the world of things. In the absence of such consciousness, we tend to create a hierarchy of being that is more often than not the source of human strife and the desecration of all that sustains us. Hear the words of the philosopher again. To forget that you are only human, to think that you can act like a god is the opposite of reverence. Ancient Greeks thought that tyranny was the height of irreverence, and they gave the famous name of hubris to the crimes of tyrants. An irreverent soul is arrogant and shameless, unable to feel awe in the face of things higher than itself. As a result, an irreverent soul is unable to feel respect for people it sees as lower than itself. Ordinary people, prisoners, children, Republicans, Democrats, libertarians. He didn't write that, I just added it. The two failures go together, she writes. In both Greek and Chinese traditions, if an emperor has a sense of awe, this will remind him that heaven is his superior, that he is, as they said in ancient China, the son of heaven. And any of this us is better for remembering that there is someone or something to whom we as children, in this frame of mind, we are more likely to treat all children with respect and vice versa. And then he says this, if you cannot bring yourself to respect children, you are probably deficient in the ability to feel that anyone or anything is higher than you. Reverence, he writes, has more to do with politics than religion. We can easily imagine religion without reverence, and we see it, for example, when religion leads people to aggressive war and violence. But power without reverence, says Woodruff, power without reverence is a catastrophe for all concerned. Power without reverence is aflame with arrogance, while service without reverence is smoldering toward rebellion. He writes, politics without reverence is blind to the general good and deaf to the advice from people who are powerless. And life without reverence, entirely without reverence, he writes, that would be brutish and selfish, and it had best be lived alone. And yet we understand implicitly that aloneness is not an option. We are not self-made or self-reliant. You see, Emerson was brilliant but not infallible. The same man who wrote the words we heard at one point talked about being self-made, except for his wife, his maid, and his scribe, with whom he could not do anything of the work that he wanted to do. We owe our very being to other beings whose lives and labors crafted a future in which we could come into being. This awareness alone ought to be enough for us to recognize that we too often have an obligation to make way for the future of other people and other generations. And deep reverence is perhaps the only way we can achieve this evolutionary goal. The philosopher's condemnation of religion and politics without reverence is an important reminder in a day and age when so much of our lives is consumed with competition and corruption and carelessness. Perhaps this is why places like this are so very important, where we can pause in the midst of life's unease and rediscover and claim for ourselves those deep connections that wed us to an existence which is far greater than we can even imagine. And it is this greater existence with which I would close this reflection, with the words of my colleague Victoria Safford. She writes, "What if there was a universe, a cosmos, that began in a shining blackness out of nothing, out of fire, out of a single silent breath, and into it came billions and billions of stars, stars beyond imagining. And near one of them a world, a blue-green world, so beautiful that learned clergy people could not even speak about it cogently. And brilliant scientists, in trying to describe it, began to sound like poets with their physics, with their mathematics, and their empirical, impressionistic musing. What if there was a universe in which a world was born out of a smallish star, and into that world at some point flew red-winged blackbirds, and into it swarmed sperm whales, and into it came crocuses, and wind to lift the tiniest hairs on naked arms in spring when you run out to the mailbox. And into it came, at some point, came onions out of soil, and came Mount Everest. And also the coyote we've been seeing in the woods about a mile from here, just after sunrise in those mornings when the moon is full. The very scent of him makes his brother, our dog, insane with fear and joy and ancient inbred memory. Into that world came animals and elements and plants and imagination, the mind and the mind's eye. If such a universe existed, she asks, and you noticed it, what would you do? What song would come out of your mouth? What prayer? What praises? What sacred offering? What whirling dance? What religion? And what reverential gesture would you make to greet that world every single day that you were in it? What would you do? What would you sing? What would you pray or praise? What would you offer or dance? What religion or what reverential gesture would you make to greet that world every single day you were in it? Amen, and blessed be. Would you please join together in our litany, found again in your gray hymnal number 530. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come, stardust and sunlight, mingling through time and through space. Time out of time, before time, in the vastness of space, Earth spun into orbit, Earth with the thunder of mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Mystery hidden in mystery, back through time. Mystery rising from rocks and storm and the sea. Ponder this thing in your heart. Ponder with awe. Out of the sea to the land, out of the shadows came ferns. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from the sea, eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of the stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. Please join together in our closing hymn found in our teal hymnal, number 1001, Breaths. Please rise in body or in spirit. My colleague George Brooks writes, "May the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives to life its sacredness, and the purposes that give to life its deep significance be strong with each of us and lead us into ever-deepening relationships with that life. Amen. And blessed be. Please be seated. Once again, beloved, worship in this place has come to an end, but our service continues, next with an opportunity for refreshment and conversation. May yours be a wondrous and wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you back here, if not sooner, very soon.